how we got here, right? And that is that, Trump already had this deal with the corrupt former president. A new guy comes in and says, in fact, campaigns on, I'm going to be the guy who cleans up the corruption. The new guy comes in, and so Trump reaches out to him through Giuliani and Sondland and Perry and says, hey, would you cut the deal with us that the previous guy did? I mean, I don't think most Americans even know that there was a previous deal that Trump had cut with Poroshenko. Most Americans obviously don't even know who Poroshenko is, and this is a problem. There's another point I want to make, and then I'm going to get to your phone calls after the break at the bottom of the hour, but there's another point that I think is a really important one. There's a really simple reason why back in 1974 there were some Republicans who actually voted to investigate Richard Nixon. In fact, there were only 4 people who voted not to investigate Richard Nixon in the U.S. House of Representatives. Only 4. They were all Republicans, but there were only 4 of them. Now, why is it that back in 1974, and what Nixon is accused of doing, trying to cover up a break-in to the DNC, we're spying on the other party, is nothing compared to bribery and extortion of a foreign government in order to flip an election. I mean, they were both trying to flip an election, right? Nixon was trying to bug the Democrats so that he could get information on what their strategy was. He actually was trying to find, I believe that he was trying to find out if they knew what Lyndon Johnson knew, that in the election of '68, Richard Nixon, when he first became president in 1968, that he had committed treason by cutting a deal with South Vietnam to not go along with the peace deal that LBJ had worked out. And that was what he wanted to find out. He needed to find out if the Democrats knew about this, and that's why, in my opinion, they were breaking into Watergate. But whatever. In both cases, you've got a Republican president who is using criminality, essentially, to become, to get reelected. This is what Nixon was doing within the election of '72 by breaking into the Watergate. And this is what Trump is doing right now, in 2019, 2020 election cycle, trying to get the Ukrainians to work with him. But why is it that today no Republicans have broken rank with Trump yet? And the only one who has, Justin Amash, left the party. I think it's because of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm not talking about putting conservatives on the court. I'm talking about in 1976 and 1978. Now, this was 2 and 4 years after the Nixon impeachment. The U.S. Supreme Court said it is perfectly fine. It's no longer considered bribery when an individual billionaire or corporation reaches out to an individual politician and says, we would like to own you. We will give you hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, both professionally and personally, if you will be our guy. And in '76 and '78, the Supreme Court said to billionaires in '76 and to corporations in '78, that is First Amendment protected free speech. You spending money to own people is no longer considered bribery. So now the situation that we have is that the entire Republican Party have become wholly owned agents of the corporate and billionaire class. And they don't want the money to stop. And Trump is doing what the billionaires and the corporations want: deregulation and lower taxes. This is their entire agenda. It's really that simple. And as long as the Supreme Court continues to say it's okay for billionaires and corporations, for the oil industry to own some of the Republicans and the pharmaceutical industry to own some of the Republicans, as long as the Supreme Court goes on to say that and the morbidly rich can continue to own politicians, we're going to continue to see this partisanship. Everybody's walking around going, why are we so partisan? There's a very simple reason. It's the Supreme Court.